Yeah, hello everybody to our today's YANUZ dialogue. Today we are going to speak about guiding principles in order to implement and run communities of practice. And for it I was able to bring my dear colleague Marije. Marije, she's part of our evaluation team in the YANUZ family. And Marije, I would please ask to introduce yourself, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks so much, Marijes. So my name is Marije Bosch. I'm a health scientist by background and originally trained in implementation research. And more recently, I have shifted my attention towards learning more about social innovation and how to tackle societal challenges. And in my role with the Aletta Jacob School of Public Health, I'm also thinking about how to link in the educational system to that as well. So what do students need to learn in order to tackle the challenges that we face?
Thank you very much, Marije. Marije, in order to set the ground a little bit and to create a common understanding, I would like for a first question to ask you, what are guiding principles and why are they needed in social innovation?
Yes, guiding principles are a compass, if you like, for developing and sustaining social innovation systems. So they are guiding in a sense that they provide advice on what to do, what to think, what to value, and how to act to be effective. So they offer direction. One way of explaining principles is to actually paint the difference between principles and rules or recipes. So an example of a recipe could be to add 1 teaspoon of salt to your delicious homemade soup, always. A related principle, by contrast, could be to season according to taste. So rather than interpreting the rule every time the same way, with a principle you need to actually interpret the meaning of the principle and then use the context to decide what makes sense. So in this case, for example, if you're cooking for patients with renal failure, perhaps you want to leave out the salt altogether and find something else to flavor your soup. So it's all about working out what the principle is about and then doing whatever makes sense in your particular context. And why they are important in social innovation. Societal challenges are really complex, they're systemic, they're interconnected, you can't predefine their outcomes, and by default they also require insights from many different perspectives. And innovations are often in a state of continuous development and adaptation, and also they unfold in an environment which is changing and unpredictable. So we're talking high levels of complexity there. And it turns out rather than sticking to a linear, predictable pathway, innovations navigate that turbulence, if you like, by adhering to principles.
Thank you very much, Marije. As a passionate cook, I must say, that's good to have that receipt then also for communities of practice working. Marije, we've been talking already in these dialogues about the COP4HL project, which is a kind of mother project to the YANUZ platform. And I would like to ask you to let us know, I'm sorry for this, how were the guiding principles developed, and can you give an example of these guiding principles, please?
Sure. So basically we developed our guiding principles in the COP4HL project collectively in a couple of steps. And the first step was that all the COPs were sitting together to look back and reflect upon what they had learned, so their lessons learned. And we then collected those lessons in an international meeting, the result of which was a long list of lessons from 6 COPs. And in step 2, we then looked at that list to see whether we could identify themes, so any lessons that could be clustered together because they were talking about related aspects. And step 3 was then to reframe those themes into action and future-oriented statements so that they were indeed guiding principles. And we then put them back to the teams and the COPs to collect their feedback, on the basis of which we basically formulated our final drafts. So yeah, they are our guidance based on our collective lessons and experiences so far.
Thank you very much,
Marije. To give you one example.
Yeah, please.
One example of a principle is to invest heavily in building relationships to grow a lasting and inclusive community. And we heard from quite a few COP members actually that this was one that is probably one of the most important ones. Because with social innovations, there's not one solution, there's not one magic bullet. So COPs are all about dialogue. Rather than convincing people from your perspective, it is about finding shared meaning, shared common ground, and then collaborate towards a shared common goal. And for that, I think trust and empathy are really crucial. So being able to put yourself in the shoes of another stakeholder and look at it from their point of view. And we think this is an important prerequisite really for being successful. So you have to first work on those relations before you can actually work towards solving challenges with good results.
Thank you very much, Marije. So I think it's very important to know that these were created collectively by community of practice stakeholders. And this leads me then to my next question, because actually how should the guiding principles then be used by maybe future community of practice stakeholders?
Yeah. So what we have developed is a set of draft guiding principles. They're ready for use as a starting point. We consider them drafts because they're not set in stone. So they now need to prove their usefulness and be validated in a particular context. So do they actually help us making meaningful decisions and interpret our impacts? And we of course very much hope that others will start using them as well and that they will share their experiences with us so that we can all learn from each other and continue the dialogue together. So yeah, the next step will be the use and evaluation of the principles themselves by us and by others.
Thank you. I think that's one of the most important principles of all the tools we're providing here on the YANUZ platform. They need to be used at the local level, and we need the feedback of those who are using these tools in order to further learn and further improve. Marije, a community of practice is about learning and sharing knowledge. It's a learning pathway, as we say. And at the end of each of the dialogues, we always ask our participants to also share a little bit of their own knowledge. So my last question is about what is your most important advice to social innovators and change agents or future change agents towards healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, I think my most important advice would actually be in relation to learning too. I think during the course of the COP4HL project, at some point it struck me that learning just seems so underrated in our society at the moment. So in relation to evaluation, for example, the classic, I suppose, linear way of evaluation is you make a plan for your project, you do the project, you look back at the end of it only to find out that you didn't do what you promised, and then basically you have to explain yourself. And particularly when you develop innovations, that just seems such a missed opportunity because by default you don't know what you will do. So it's just so much more useful to embrace evaluation during the development process so that you can still use the information to actually make decisions going forward and also to interpret any impacts that you may have. So yeah, my advice, I guess, would be to develop a culture and a way of working in which reflections and evaluation are part of the process right from the start. And also to engage all your stakeholders in that process, including your end users, so that you get all the different perspectives and you can really tap into that wisdom of the crowd.
Thank you very much, Marije. I'm really glad having you in our evaluation and training team and going that learning pathway also on our side together. And this leaves me only to say many thanks for your time and for your great input. And I hope we are talking soon with the next dialogue, hopefully. Thank you very much,
Likewise.
Marije.
Thank you so much, Matthias.